Hello there, BookTube. My name is Daniel. Welcome back to my channel, Guilty Feet. Unicorn. And today I'm going to do one of my accidental authors. This is an author that I've read at least 3 books by, but not my favorite author. I just somehow, over the course of time, I've read at least 3 books by this author. Not 3, can't be 3 books in a series. The author I'm talking about today is Shalom Auslander, and we'll get to that in a second. I also want to point out that my mother called me early this morning and asked me to speak more slowly in these videos. So thanks for that, Mum. Okay, Shalom Auslander. This goes back to 2008. I bought his first 2 books together because his second book, which was a memoir, had received terrific reviews, and so his first book of short stories, I think, was published at the same time. It was being republished, at least in the UK, or maybe even published for the first time in the UK, and I bought them together. So this is a big deal for me to go out and buy 2 new books by an author that was new to me. So this is Beware of God. This is a collection of short stories that I would have paid £7.99 for in Borders. This is the memoir. It's called Foreskin's Lament. Foreskin's Lament, I can't help thinking that there is some rhythmic, at least syllabic connection and sound, a sort of near rhyme between Foreskin's Lament and Portnoy's Complaint. I think there's something there, and Auslander has often been compared to Philip Roth. This was Roth's breakthrough novel. If you haven't read it, it's very good, very funny. I don't know if it stands up. I know that Roth has been pretty much cancelled, but still one of the most important American novelists of the 20th century, certainly Jewish American writers. So Foreskin's Lament. So I read Beware of God first of all, short stories, and liked this. This was terrific, short, punchy, Jewish, neurotic, good stuff. And then I read Foreskin's Lament, which I absolutely hated. Hated to the extent that after finishing this, I went online. This is like 2008, before everyone was using the internet for everything. Before there was Twitter, and found somebody to write to, whether it was his literary agent or someone in the publishing house, and wrote a stinking letter about Shalom Auslander, about how disingenuous I found this book, about how dishonest I found him as a writer, and really I don't have it anymore. This is several jobs ago. It would have been from my work email. I'm delighted that I don't have it anymore, because it'd be hugely embarrassing. I genuinely hope that no one ever passed this letter on to him, because I was angry, and I spent hours composing this thing and sent it off, and hopefully no one ever read it or passed it on to anybody. So how did I go from having a positive attitude to Auslander, Beware of God, to really hating this memoir? Partly because Auslander and I are of a similar age. I'm probably about a year older than him, but we moved in some of the same circles. So in his biographies, it talks about him growing up as an ultra-Orthodox Jew. I don't think that's true. I think it's much more modern Orthodox, very similar to the world that I am familiar with. I think he went to Yeshiva High School, whereas I went to a Church of England high school in the UK. But after high school, I came to Israel for 2 years. Some of that time I spent studying in Yeshiva. And I imagine there were places, even though he's a year younger than me, I was in Israel for 2 years. I imagine that there were times where we were in the same place at the same time. I know the world that he was involved in. He was a student in Yeshiva, but as I say, I don't think ultra-Orthodox. Maybe wore a hat, maybe wore a jacket, where I was sort of jeans and t-shirt. So he might have been slightly more Orthodox, one step beyond where I was. But I imagine we were hanging out at the same pizza place on a Saturday night after Shabbat finished in Jerusalem, because that's where all the Yeshiva boys and all the girls who were studying went, and met all the Anglos, all the English and the Americans, the South Africans, the Australians, who on a slightly different time, because their academic year is 6 months out of sync with us in the Northern Hemisphere. But Saturday night outside Apple Pizza in Jerusalem was where everyone was. I imagine he was in the exact same place, because what he's describing, this level of interaction with Judaism, where he's studying in Yeshiva, so surrounded by boys studying the Talmud, learning for the sake of learning, intellectual rigor of studying and discussing and debating and all these things that go on with no exam at the end of it. You're just doing it because. But we were also 18, 19-year-old 20-year-old boys looking to hang out with the girls on the weekends when we had some time off, and he talks about all the places he talks about hanging out in Jerusalem, going up to Netanya, which is a seaside resort where his girlfriend's there, where he goes to find her and sees that she's with another boy. All these things happen in here. It's a world that I am very familiar with, and yet. The path that Auslander takes, which no judgment, he moves away from religion and rejects it. His parents are religious. He is no longer religious, and that's a very natural, normal tension, and just doesn't just revolve around religion. It revolves around anything where your parents want one thing for you or expect one kind of lifestyle for you, and you decide to find your own way and choose something different. That's very normal. That's the underpinning tension of many memoirs, many familial relationships. Without going into detail, there's an incident in this book which I found so deeply disingenuous on Auslander's part. And I'm not calling him a liar for any of the things he says about his father or his relationship with his mother or his uncle or any of these things in there. But there's a point at which I know he knows what he's presenting isn't true, because I know that he knows the nuances of this aspect of the religion which he twists and tries to portray to an audience that don't know these things. Well, look, isn't it bonkers that they expect me to do this? He understands the weight of his decision, and then when the response to the decision he makes, which he knows was going to cause, he knows this was going to trigger this response, and he's like, I can't believe there is one. After all I tried to do to ease the blow and to show them that I was making concessions. He wasn't making concessions. He did it deliberately to upset his parents. And the thing that upset me is he uses his child to do it. Okay, again, I'm getting very personal. This is all about my response to it. But I hated this book. Hated. Forced Lament by Shalom Auslander. I know plenty of people similar to me, similar backgrounds, similarly, who didn't mind this at all and found it amusing. He's funny. He can write. His sense of humor is a little puerile, but there's nothing wrong with the writing. I just found this dishonest. But I then went and read another of his books. So after I had that and had that frightful reaction to that, 4 or 5 years later, he published his first novel. So we've got short stories, memoir, and then this is Hope, Tragedy by Shalom Auslander, which I hate bought and hate read. I didn't buy this new, so I bought both his first 2 books. I bought new. This I must have bought secondhand. It's got a remainder thing on it. I don't know where I bought this from some online store. So I didn't pay the full $27 is the cover price on this. And this is a novel about a guy who moves upstate New York, takes over a farmhouse, to get away from the big smoke, I believe. And lo and behold, in the attic in this farmhouse is an old woman who refuses to leave. And he's trying to get away from trouble and de-stress his life. And there's an old woman in the attic, a foul-mouthed old woman who it turns out is claiming to be Anne Frank. I don't have a problem particularly with that setup, but so I just didn't think it was a great novel. I'm not offended by the resurrection of Anne Frank, or is it not Anne Frank who's living in the attic? In fact, this is a device that's been used over and over again. I've come across Anne Frank as if she was still alive in other novels. So this is from, I got this in 2013. This book is published in, I'll tell you, if I could see, and I can't even see the thing. It was 2012. So, but I read an earlier novel. This is from 1998. This is an English experimental novel called 253 by a chap called Jeff Ryman, which I bought at that time. So I've dated this inside April 98. And this is a book about a crash on the London Underground, in which 253 passengers are injured or killed, or maybe these are the casualties, I don't remember which. And each page talks about each one of them, where they're sitting in the carriage and what happens to them, and a little bit about their backstory. And one of the people killed in this accident, in this supposed fictional accident on the London Underground, is Anne Frank. And posited here that she doesn't remember. She's an amnesiac who somehow ends up in London and is living as an old woman and babbling to herself on the tube and gets caught up and killed in this ridiculous tragedy. I've also read Nathan Englander, another American contemporary Jewish writer, who wrote a collection of short stories called What We Talk About When We Talk About Anne Frank. That title, if you're not aware, is a direct homage to one of Raymond Carver's short stories, which is called What We Talk About When We Talk About Love. I think one of Haruki Murakami's books has been translated as What We Talk About When We Talk About Running. It's all Zen. Everything is connected. Anyway, that's a short story about Anne Frank. And as I say, Hope or Tragedy was this novel that Auslander did. So I read this because I hated Forskin's Lament so much, but I felt because it had such a strong reaction, and people had said, wow, that was a strong reaction, when I told them that I'd written this stinking letter, I thought I would give him another chance, just to how much is it me, how much is this author that I just find objectionable, that if I met him in real life, I would say, you're an ass. And I read it. It wasn't offensive. Certainly, even this inclusion of Anne Frank, I don't find that particularly offensive. It's a literary device, and it was fine. So I got through the end of this, but I think I'm pretty much done with Shalom Auslander. But somehow I've read 3 books by him. He qualifies as an accidental author. And really, there's another novel too. I think he's written around novel. He's done other things. There was a TV show that he was involved in with Philip Seymour Hoffman, but then ended up Steve Coogan, I think, called Happy-ish, which sort of came and went. And there's another novel more recently, which is about a family of cannibal Americans, which I just skipped. I figured after that, and I'm done. So that is my accidental author. 3 books by Shalom Auslander, an author who I have not enjoyed as much as I enjoyed his first collection. Second book made me angry. Third book, meh. But still, 3 books. I'm still looking forward to hearing about your accidental authors. I have a ton more. I've gone through that went all the way down to see how many authors I've got that I've read 3 or more books by, and it just has happened over time. Anyway, that's enough for now. Take care. Bye.